If you look up either of us on LinkedIn, you're going to see 3 letters after our name, CFP. Today we're going to unpack what those 3 letters mean and a little bit behind 10 Capital's continual growth model. If you've worked with 10 Capital for any period of time, you're going to learn that we're about growth in many areas. Part of growth is performance. Dave, talk a little bit about performance.
Yeah, so performance, just looking, let's go to actually a couple of studies. This might help explain what you're talking about here. When we look at ROI, return on investment that you can actually get from your advisor in the wealth management space, what Ben and I do and what 10 Capital does for you. These studies have been referenced before, but they call it advisor alpha. How much added benefit can we as advisors in the wealth management space bring to you, our clients? And if you actually look at the quantification of that, really about 30 basis points comes down in the performance of portfolios, outperformance in portfolios, and the drastic majority of the value that we're providing comes through from the planning side of the equation. So things like optimizing taxes, things like behavioral investment coaching, when the market's down, telling your clients not to sell and riding along those choppy markets with them, or even looking at things like estate planning. So those are the things that outperformance really means to us, not just market performance and portfolio performance.
So basically, financial planning.
Exactly, there we go.
Okay, if we were to take all of those things he just said, we're talking about financial planning. And at the end of the day, that 3%, only a portion of it actually makes up outperformance of one's account value relative to beating an index.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So the majority of that alpha actually comes from what you just mentioned in synopsis, financial planning, right? So those 3 letters, what do they stand for?
Certified financial planner.
Okay, certified financial planner. We established that financial planning is estate planning, tax planning.
It's all of it.
Investment planning, insurance planning, lots of planning at the end of the day. Let's talk a little bit why each of us sat for the CFP exam, because it's a pretty rigorous process. It's made up of 6 different sections of education that one needs to satisfy through a different program. You gotta have a bachelor's degree, you gotta pass a stinking 6-hour exam where you sit in a room with a bunch of people that you have no idea who they are and look at a tiny little computer screen. It's not something that I recommend unless you're really into finance. So Dave, why don't you talk a little bit about why you sat for the CFP exam?
My background is I've been doing this since '06. My dad was actually a 42-year certified financial planning participant. So he actually got his back in the 80s at some point. So yeah, it's kind of in my blood, but I kind of decided if I'm going to be in this industry, I'm going to kind of go after that gold standard. And the CFP mark is the gold standard in the financial planning world. So that's first and foremost, just hitting that mark was really important to myself. And I wanted to do that before he retired. So I was able to get that done before he actually retired last year.
I think it's kind of funny. All of us have our reasons for getting the CFP. One of the reasons why I got my CFP is because I'm competitive, if I'm going to be very honest. I started years ago down the educational track of getting our CFP, and now there are 3 of us that have gotten our CFP here at 10 Capital. Started off with Dave, and then John, and now myself is the most recent. They only offer this test 3 times a year. When Dave got it, I, of course, had to start studying so that I too could have the CFP. So there's this healthy rivalry within 10 Capital, but that's also what is part of the team process, right? This CFP, I think, brings a lot of validity to our client meetings. It brings a depth of knowledge to client meetings that a lot of us have different giftings, right? And I think this is just another tool in our toolbox that we can bring. Tim has his law degree, he's a JD. Jake got his certified life planning certificate, right? 2 very different giftings than what I think you or I or John now have from a planning background. And just continual growth. I mean, I think as our firm grows, as we bring on more assets, as our client base expands, then needs,
more complex needs.
Yeah, certainly more complex needs. And so I think it's that whole mentality of skate to where the puck's going.
Yep. And I think what hopefully our clients will see ongoing as well is just the importance that we're putting into being credentialed more and more and more. So we're trying to make this table stakes at some point. So we went from 0, well, my dad was a CFP, but we went from effectively 0 CFPs after he retired to now 3 within almost like, a 12-month period. So what you're gonna continue to see at 10 Capital is we're gonna continue pushing up, pushing each other up and holding each other accountable for kind of getting to that next level, whatever that person's focus is. Well, I got a question for you. So, what did you learn along the way? What did you unexpectedly take away from the process of getting to studying for and passing?
I think I actually, part of it, right, I mentioned earlier, is there's 6 courses you have to go through. So I don't know what your review courses were like, but I had to sit in classes again, like online through Boston Institute of Finance. Every 2 nights a week, I was sitting in classes studying. And it was really interesting to learn about myself again, how much I actually enjoy learning, right? And it's been years since I've sat in a classroom, but the spirit of learning, I think, was reinvigorated. And I think that's also the case when you were getting it and John was getting it and I'm getting it, right? And that mentality, that competitive spirit amongst us that really wants to learn and grow and not feel like we're letting the team down in any particular way too. After going through it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is no joke. Like, this is the real deal. You do learn a lot, I think, that you can bring to the table for your clients to really, that Vanguard study, that BlackRock study, the 3% alpha, I think that is valid and that is in conjunction with the CFP at this point, because you're going to bring a lot of things, I think, to the table as a CFP that we would not have otherwise studied, most likely, or we would not have thought of to bring to the table, right? So,
and I think too, we're kind of, I think most of us are in that sweet spot that are somewhat seasoned here, where you have the application of it. So I think when you take the years of experience and overlay it with the education, that kind of combines to be able to implement what you know pretty quickly. So I know on the estate planning side, I've had some pretty complex estate planning cases come my way, trust work, those types of things, and I really got a depth and breadth of knowledge that it was fun because I got to actually apply it while I was going through the testing process. So it really kind of hit home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, what we want you guys to know is that we at 10 Capital are really about continual growth. We want to continue to bring you, the brightest individuals, the best tools that we can, so that you guys can live productive, fruitful lives. So thank you for watching. We'll sign off here. Anything else, Dave?
No, thanks for watching.
Happy Friday.